So this is going to be the hardest addition and subtraction problem that we have to look at. And we know that this is going to be a little bit difficult because you can see I have a trinomial now, and then on top they're binomials, so it's different. It's going to be a little bit harder, but we can deal with the same steps that we were with the simpler problems. Remember, it's adding. Anytime that I'm adding rational expressions, you know I'm going to have to see if this match or no match. You can see it does not match. Yeah, you have an a squared and a squared, but nothing else matches. Negative 5a, negative 6a, 6 and 8. So definitely not a match. Remember, it has to match exactly. So we need to find an LCD. You know, to find an LCD, we have to factor out each of the denominators. Notice the bottom denominator is a trinomial, so you always look to see if there's a GCF. No matching parentheses, letter, letter, no letter, number, number, no number. Doesn't start with a negative, so no GCF. Because it's three terms, again, no tree diagram, I want you to say trinomial and no number in front. I'm going to demonstrate it as shortcut. So two sets of parentheses. Break down a squared as a and a, that's step one. Plus means signs are going to be the same, so we need two negative signs here. That's step two. Do all the combos of 6. You should know that's 1 and 6, 2 and 3. The one that adds to be the 5 is the 2 and the 3. Because they're the same signs, it doesn't matter if the 2 went first or the 3 went first. Let's do this corner. Notice, trinomial as well. Notice there's no leading coefficient. Notice there is no GCF. No matching parentheses, letter, letter, no letter. Number, number, no number. Doesn't start with a negative. So we have no GCF, but we do have 3 terms, so we can do shortcut since there's no leading coefficient. Go through those 6 steps real quick. Setup, A and A. Step 2, signs. Again, another plus. Look at the middle, determine if it's 2 positives or 2 negatives. We're going to do 2 negatives. Step 2. Next, step 3, do all the combos of 8. Was not many. 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Step 4, do we need to add or subtract? The plus at the very end tells us to add. Step 5, choose a combo that matches the middle of 6. Ooh, there we go, 6. And then placement. Because they're both negatives, it doesn't matter who gets what. So we're done factoring out the denominators. Notice we got some factors that are the same and some factors that are different. So we need definitely figure out what factors should go in my LCD list. So do I have a binomial a minus 2? No. Do I have a binomial a minus 3? No. Do not say, well, I have an a here, so I'm only missing a 3 and put a 3 here. Remember, this is glued together. So you're asking yourself, do you have binomial a minus 3? No. Do you have a minus 2 binomial? Yes. Do you have a minus 4? No. And then you're going to do the versus game. A minus 2 here, a minus 2 here. 1 versus 1, 1's the greatest amount. So put a little 1. A minus 3, 1 versus 0. We still need 1. A minus 4, 0 versus 1. Again, the highest amount is 1. So that's my LCD. So take each of these. Don't use the original, use the factored form. This way it makes it easier to see what's that extra piece. Who's that hitchhiker? Remember, we're going to raise it to the whole LCD. So you can see a minus 2, check. A minus 3, check. Ooh, that must be the extra piece. So whatever's in the bottom box has to be the same on the top box. This is where it's tricky. Because this is not a monomial, but a binomial. Remember how to multiply a binomial with a binomial? Some of you are my distributing people. Some of you are my FOIL people. Others might be still my rectangle people. When you do rectangles, you're going to draw your grid. Remember, 3a minus 8 on one side, a minus 4 on the other. So you can get 3a squared minus 8a minus 12a plus 32. Remember, negative times negative, negative times positive. Remember, multiply the coefficient and the constant. And then you know that these are like terms. So for this corner, it would be 3a squared, negative 8, negative 12, means I have negative 20 of those single a's, and then the positive 32. So that's where it gets a little tricky, is multiplying a binomial times a binomial. If you're my distributors, that's fine, or if you're my rectangles, that's fine. Gotta make some space for the other. A plus 2. Remember, use the factored form. So when I raise it to the LCD, you can clearly see what the extra piece is. Remember, you started your trip in Philadelphia was 2 passengers. You ended up in Boston with 3 passengers. Someone's the extra piece, the hitchhiker. Let's see who it is. It looks like we have the additional a minus 3. Draw your boxes. Put in the extra piece. Remember, the bottom box and the top box are the same. So when you do this times this, you're going to get your new numerator. Now again, if you need to do a rectangle, remember it's 2 by 2. Binomial times binomial. So remember how I did 2 rows and 2 columns, and then an a plus 2 on one side and an a minus 3 on the other. Remember, it doesn't matter if this has the a plus 2 or the a minus 3, as long as one goes on one and the other on the other. So we have a squared minus 3a plus 2a minus 6. So then when we collect the single a's with single a's, you'll see that I have a squared minus 1a minus 6. Remember, negative, positive. Remember how the negative team wins. So that's why it's negative 1a. Okay, my board's very small, so I'm going to have to do some erasing. So what I'm going to do is get rid of these, okay, because I'm saying that this is the equivalent. And get rid of this and saying that this is the equivalent. That way we have matching denominators. Now, to save some time, if you remember what your LCD is, if you were doing this by hand, a lot of times when I do things by hand, I know what the LCD is. So I would just put in the word LCD, not to drive myself crazy and write. See how I write it every single time? It gets a little cumbersome. So it might be easier just to say, well, I know what the LCD is. Just put it in the top over, I know it's going to be the LCD. But that's up to you. If you're that person who needs to see every little thing, then just write the LCD as a minus 2, a minus 3, a minus 4. Now, once we realize that the bottoms match, LCD, LCD, remember a minus 2, a minus 3, a minus 4, then what we can do is write it as one big fraction. I'll just put the word LCD so I don't have to write it out 100,000 times. And then realize that it's going to be this plus this. Now, the reason why I kept on saying using parentheses, if you remember, go back to adding and subtracting polynomials. Remember how I said put in the parentheses and distribute the 1, and you saw that when it's a plus, adding the polynomials, things don't change. When it's subtraction, you can see that signs have to change. Because this is addition, we don't have to worry about signs changing. So what we're going to do for me to save a little time, because I know if I put a 1 here and a 1 here, and I distribute, I'll just get the same thing. So I'll write it without parentheses. I just did 1 times a squared to get 1a squared. So now I want to collect like terms. So let's circle these with this. Remember, it's the same variable parts. It's not all a's go together. It's a squared can only go with another a squared. Single a, single a. Constant, constant. So let's go 3a squared plus 1a squared. 2 positives you add, you get 4a squared. Remember, it keeps the same variable part. A squared stays a squared. Negative 20a, negative 1a, negative 21a. 2 negatives, same signs you add. And then a positive 32 and a negative 6. Here you're going to actually have to do subtraction. So when you take away 6, you're going to be left with 26. And it's all over the LCD. Now, this would have been technically adding, but not necessarily simplifying. Notice the direction said add and simplify was possible. How do you simplify? Oh, you're going to have to look at the top and realize, 3 terms. You're not going to do monomials. We're going to look to see if there's a GCF. I will tell you there is no GCF because no matching parentheses, letter, no letter. If you break down 4, it's 2 and 2. If you break down 21, it's 3 and 7. They don't have a common number factor. And it doesn't start with a negative. But we do have 3 terms, so that means arch, shortcut, FOIL. Because it has a leading number, we are going to go arch. Arch is the one that does take us some time. You do want to have your calculator by your side because you're going to create the arch as step 1 and multiply those 2 numbers. So take your 26, times it by 4, and we get 104. That's step 1. Remember, there's 8 steps, and you're not actually doing any factoring until you get to the 8th step. Step 2 says take the 104 and go and figure out every combo. Start with 1. Does it go in there evenly? 2. Does it go in there evenly? 3. Does it go in there evenly? No. 4, we know that because we just did it. 4 times 26. 5, no, because it doesn't end in a 0 or 5. 6, no, it won't work because if 3 doesn't work, 6 won't work. 7, you want to check. I can tell you by looking at it, it's no, but just check. You can see you get a decimal point. Remember, don't put any decimals, it doesn't work. 8, yes, 8 is going to work, okay? 9, no. If 3 didn't work, 9 won't work. 10, no, doesn't end in a 0. 11, 7s and 11s are those weird ones that you just want to put in your calculator just to see. And I can see I get a decimal point, 9.45, doesn't work. 12, since 12 has a 3 in it, if there's no 3 up here, it can't work. And 13, already up on the board. So we got them. Now, let's see if we have any combos that add to this middle number. So step 3 is add. We got a combo that works. Step 4 is to choose a combo that gives us the 21. If there is no 21 here, that just tells me you can't factor out the top. If you can't factor out the top, then your answer would be this over whatever your LCD is. In our case, x minus 2, x minus 3, x minus 4. But because we were able to find a combo, that tells me this factors out. So after you do choose your combo, step 4, step 5 is your split. Remember how I told you that the middle term will split so that you'll have two coefficients. So no longer 21, you're going to have two coefficients, which are 8 and 13. Remember, these are coefficients, so you have to bring down the variable. They both get the same letter always. Then bring down, realize that we need signs here. So we're going to bring down, take the higher number, always gets the same sign. Always. Because it's a plus sign, it tells me that these two are going to be the same sign. So step 5 was to split, step 6 is the sign issues. We know that they're going to be the same, and then 13 tells me I'm going to get the same negatives. Once we have that, then step 7, take this down, take this down, and I hate to say, you're not done. That is only to see that we can factor this out and that we can rewrite it as 4-term problem. When it's a 4-term problem, then you do the grouping method. Notice I didn't use any parentheses because remember, the arch method does not do any type of factoring. All it does is take 3-term trinomial and stretch this into 4 terms. The reason why we like this method is because the FOIL, we would have to try every combination. Here, if I know a combination doesn't work, then I know right off the bat that it cannot factor out. If I do find a combination that works, I know what to put in here so that I don't have to try 100,000 different types of combinations. To do grouping, remember that's 4 steps. Step 1 is the parentheses, make sure that sign's included in the second set of parentheses. Step 2, take out the GCF in the first set of parentheses. Hopefully you see that they both have an A. Hopefully you recognize they both have a 4 in them. When you take out a 4A out of each term, notice you're left with A minus 2. In this set of parentheses, notice that you can take out a 13, because 26 is technically 2 times 13. Remember, I always say, if it starts as a negative, or the safest way to do this is whatever sign that is, bring it down as part of your GCF. When you divide each term by negative 13, then you're left with A minus 2. So we did step 2, step 3, and then our final step is see that these must match. Remember, they become just one set of parentheses. And these GCFs that you found in step 2 and step 3 are your other set of parentheses. So this factors down to this. So how's that going to help us? Well, if I know that this is this, don't use this, use the factored form, put it over the LCD. Now you might have forgotten, the LCD was A minus 2, A minus 3, and A minus 4. Notice this is factored, this is factored, A minus 2 matches A minus 2. So that we can cancel out those matching factors. Notice nothing else matches. You have an A here, but we don't have a 4A minus 13 down here. So I don't want you to say, well, can I cancel out this 4? Was this 4 and this A? Was this A? No. This is binomial. They're glued together. So I don't have any others that match. So then our final answer, 4A minus 13, I'll put in parentheses, over A minus 3, put it in parentheses, and A minus 4. I do not need to distribute the bottom out. I'll leave it, our answer, like this.